What's up, guys? It's Rey-Jay back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down what's happening with SPY, Tsla, NVIDIA, the QQQ, and a couple of other tickers. I'm also going to break down what's happening with the economic calendar approaching tomorrow, what you should be watching for as time progresses. But just note that I am not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Moomoo link. If you deposit $100, you're guaranteed 5 free stocks. If you deposit $1,000, you're guaranteed 15 in total, not to mention 8.1% APY on uninvested cash. The offer ends very soon in just 2 weeks, so check it out before they run out. Anyways, now let's talk about the market. So I just want to say that as far as SPY goes, we're approaching a very, very tough resistance right now, and I don't think we're just going to crack through it very easily. So there might be a lot of consolidation that happens, a lot of range-bound price action between now and the start of FOMC. So I want to give you guys a very, very important heads up about that. So what's happening for tomorrow? Tomorrow is going to be Monday, September 16th, 2024. There's nothing too significant coming out. At 11:30 a.m., we just have the 3-month and then 6-month bill auctions, and everything else is very, very minor. In fact, we do have more significant data coming out for Tuesday before the market opens, but then after that, things become minor again. And then finally, the main time to watch for data is going to be FOMC when we start to get our interest rate decision, whether the Fed gives us a 25 or 50 basis point cuts, not to mention their interest rate projections. That's going to be very important for Wednesday. So the market's waiting for Wednesday, getting ready for it. I think we might see a lot of consolidation, a lot of range bound price action approaching it. So for tomorrow, it's a very minor day. The data might not affect the market as much. Same thing with earnings. There's not really much coming out as well. It's just very, very minor stuff. So that's why I think the market may just be range bound, not to do anything too crazy for the time being. Now, right now, there's a 50-50 chance of us getting either a 25 or a 50 basis point cut, which implies there's a 100% chance that the Fed is going to give us some kind of cut. And we'll see what the Fed ends up giving us, right? If the Fed gives us that 25 basis point cut, the market may have a decent reaction to it. But if Jerome Powell's tonality is very, very dovish and he says that the Fed is entering an easing cycle, the market could still really like that. If they give us a 50 basis point cuts, the market may also like that. So we'll see how it goes. It depends a lot on what Jerome Powell also says in addition to this decision on Wednesday. And it's going to be the next big catalyst for the market. But until then, I just want to say that the market's at a very, very tough area. So when you look at SPY, I said this on my video from yesterday, we have a very tough resistance between 563 and 565, and we're not going to crack past that most likely. We're not just going to break through this easily. It's going to be very tough to break that. And we may need a big catalyst to do so. So every time SPYs hits 563 to 565, we have rejected every single time historically. So there's a good chance we might see SPY dip a little bit. And I think we're just going to be range bound for the time being. I don't think we're going to crash from here. I don't think it's going to be like that. I don't think we're just going to rally like crazy from here as well. I think we might just see a lot of range bound price action for the time being. And then FOMC will cause either a big dump or a big pump. A pump does seem more favorable if the Fed has a more modest tone. So we'll see if that ends up being the case. But just to be safe, we're going to be very, very patient. So what are the levels to watch for? It's very simple. SPY has very tough resistance between 563 and 565. If we break 563, we're looking for the high that ended up coming on the very, very beginning of September, I believe it was, around that 565 area. And then if that breaks, we'd be looking for basically 565. But like I said before, it's a very, very tough resistance area. I wouldn't expect us to break through that too easily. If we fail to break above 562, you're looking for a dip back down to about 560 as a strong possibility. We also have an imbalance around there. If that fails us, we're looking for basically not only this 560 area, but also 558. And then if that fails us, we're going down towards our 20 EMA, which is where we have this zone of support, this very, very nice demand zone at this 555 area. That's where we might see a lot of buyers step in. So I think what's going to happen tomorrow is whether we get a little push in the pre-market or not depends. We could attempt to get up to about 564 and then start to consolidate up in this range. Then there might be a little bit of a dip coming. I think we could be dipping to about 560, if not 558. Then we'll get bought back up and just continue to consolidate in this range for the time being, approaching FOMC. That's what my view is for the time being. That's what I think is going to most likely happen. So that's what my view is for SPY. For ES, we have resistance to watch for at 56.30 and also at 56.50. If those break, we're looking for a nice breakout. If we end up losing support at 56.25, we're looking for a dip back down towards 5600, not to mention 5580. And overall, we're forming a cup-like structure, but even if we do go a little bit higher to about 5650, it's possible to go just a bit higher. We could still see a little bit of a rejection here because ES has a very, very tough resistance zone right here. We failed to break the 5660s for quite some time. So I wouldn't be surprised if we do go a little bit higher, then come back down, and we've struggled to break that resistance, and we just entered this choppy zone. So notice that we do have a tendency of chopping between 55.80 and the 56.60 area. So we could go a little bit higher, then come back down, and we could be looking for a retest of 5600, maybe a little bit lower, then back up and just some consolidation around there. So look for a little bit of a push up here, a rejection, some consolidation, then we'll see how things go, at least moving forward. That's what I find to be the most likely case. For Nvidia, if we break the 120 area, we're looking for 122.8, around that range. If we lose 118, we're looking for a dip back down to 115. We're completely range bound right now. We have a nice inverse head and shoulders like structure. So what I think is going to happen is this might become more symmetrical. See how symmetrical the chart looks? If I draw a line like right here, the left is resembling the right, or maybe it's like the right is resembling the left, right? So notice that what tended to happen is we saw consolidation before we saw our gaps above uh, form, or at least the gaps above form before we saw this consolidation. So it might be the opposite this time around. So we might see some consolidation here, maybe a little bit of a dip. So 118, if not 115 on Nvidia, then a rebound back up before this thing attempts to bounce off its key EMAs. So look at 118. If that fails us, we're looking for 115. Then the 114s, which is where our 20 and 50 EMAs happen to be. If those fail, we're looking for 110. If we break 120, we're looking for 122 or higher. I presume we're just going to consolidate, maybe dip a bit, then try to rebound. That's the most likely case for NVIDIA. A little bit of a dip and a bounce. For Bitcoin, I'm seeing the same thing essentially. We had a high establishing a potential big resistance at this 60,500 area, the exact level I had marked. So I think what's going to happen is we're going to be fighting for the 60,000 area. It might be a little bit tough to break through it. If we don't break through this, we could be looking for a dip back down to about 59,000, followed by the 58,000 area. If we break 60,500, we're looking for a big push. My gut is telling me we could be dipping down towards the 59,000s. And then after that, we might be looking for a rebound. So look for 59,400 to be tested tomorrow, maybe a little bit lower, and then it's going to likely try to rebound after that. The trend is bullish on Bitcoin, but there could be a little bit of a dip coming before it starts to consolidate. So I'll be watching to see how this ends up performing. For Tesla has a very nice looking setup. It has upside potential, of course. However, for the short term, I just want to say that for the next couple of days, it depends on Tesla's catalysts. We have a tough resistance in this 230 area and also at 235. It's a very, very tough area. Tesla's been rejecting every single time we hit the 235 area for the last 1.5 to 2 months almost. If we end up rejecting, we're looking for support very close to about 228 and 225. If that fills us, I think we could get closer to like the 221 area, the 50 EMA. So I think what's going to happen to Tesla is this. We love to kind of push a little bit, might push a little bit higher into the 230 area, maybe go a little bit above that. Depending on the catalyst, of course, that comes out, then we could be dipping back down towards 228, followed by our 20 EMA down here. And then we might just consolidate between 225 and 230 for the majority of the day. So look for an attempt to push, followed by some consolidation for Tesla as the most likely case. And I favor that a little bit more. For NQ pushed all the way up to about this 19,600 area. If that breaks, we're looking for basically 19,700. If you reject it, we're looking for a dip back down towards 19,263. So we're just in a range right over here. I think that's just kind of stuck. We're slowing down right over here in terms of our 4-hour time frame. So I think we could push a little bit higher. I think NQ could go a little bit higher before it comes back down, but there might be a little bit of a dip towards our EMAs coming. So a little bit of a bounce and a dip, and then some consolidation is the most likely case, in my opinion, for NQ. Might push a little bit more before we see that rejection. So it might go closer to about 19,600 to 19,700 before it comes back down. If it ends up dipping below 19,500, we could be dipping to 19,250 before we start to consolidate again. So look for a little bit of a pop and then a dump. QQQ has the same thing essentially going on. We have some tough resistance at this 475 zone and also around 478. So I think we could push a little bit higher, then come back down, consolidate in this range for some time. If we lose 473, we're looking for a dip back down towards 467. So I think we could be dipping to 470, then 467, and then we might come back up and just continue to consolidate. Like Nvidia, this has a symmetrical structure. This is kind of like inverse head and shoulders, possibly, but at the very least, we're not going to solely count on the inverse head and shoulders. We're just going to be looking for this move down here. So I think there might be a little bit of a dip coming closer to 470, if not 467, before we try to get bought back up. So look for a little bit of a dip and some consolidation, just like what I said about SPY. Apple is showing signs of the same thing. We tried to push up to about 225 and we came just short of trying to break that. So we're looking at 222 as our support. If that fails us, we're looking for basically 220. If we break 222.63, we're looking for 224. I presume we might be dipping lower towards 220, so this might lead to a little bit of a dip. And then this might start to consolidate in this range as time goes on. For others out there, we have Palantir. Palantir is doing a good job at holding up so far, looking quite bullish. If we could break 36, we're looking for 36.5. So it might go a little bit higher, still outperform the market before it starts to slow down. Look for 35 as support. If that fails us, we're looking for 34.39, followed by the 33. I think we might push for the 36s before we start to dip back down into the 34 area. For super micro, we look more bullish, but there's one thing that's worth mentioning, and that is we have a tough resistance close to about this 475 area. I think it's possible we push for 475, then come back down, dip a little bit, try to retest the 440 zone before we do see another bounce coming later on. But I think that we're going to hit some tough resistance close to 470. We might push a little bit higher before we see that dip. So watch for that as well. For Rivian, we're just completely range bound. In my opinion, I think that Rivian is going to completely just be stuck within this range, going back and forth and back and forth. And if we don't reclaim 13.58, we could be dipping back down towards 13. So, in my opinion, I think there's a good chance we just remain range bound. I wouldn't be surprised if we see a little bit of a bounce before we come back down to the low 13s. So, watch and see if that ends up being the case. For SoFi, we look more bullish. If we break past 7.8, we're looking for basically $8. If we end up dipping below that, we could be dipping back down to about 7.5. So I think what's going to happen is we push up for 7.8, if not the $8 area. Then we could be looking for a dip after that, but we still look bullish on SoFi. There's no sign of this slowing down. So momentum may continue into next week for hitting 7.8. I think 7.8 is coming before anything else. And we'll see if we reject off that or not. For the IWM, I think it's going to push a little bit more for 217.68. If that breaks, we could get closer to 220. I think 217.68 is coming. We'll see if you reject or not off of that, but there is some upside potential nonetheless. For AMD, we're making a very, very nice move to the upside. If we reject and we end up losing 152, we're looking for basically 148, followed by 145. If we break this resistance, we're looking for basically 154. So we'll see which way we go as we're just consolidating, so give this the time it needs. For ARM, we're looking more bullish. We're looking for basically 148. We have a higher low being established and has potential. If you reject off 150, we're looking for a dip back down for 140. I think that it's hitting a tough resistance up here at this 150 area. Not too sure it's going to break through this. We might see a little bit of a dip back down to the 145 before it tries to bounce again. So look out for that. For Coinbase, we're doing a decent job. We're actually range bound right now. This is going to likely track Bitcoin. So look at the 50 EMA. 168 is key resistance, and then 161 is our key support. We're kind of range bound right now. I see potential in this to try to push and try to break past that resistance, but I still think that there's potential for that to chop around. Amazon might dip a little bit, so we're barely at 186. I think we could be retesting this imbalance towards 184. If that doesn't hold, we're looking for 182, and then we should bounce off one of those supports. For resistance, watch 188 and 190. I presume we're going to be dipping to 184, if not 182, before we try to bounce. For Meta, we look a little bit more like we're going to consolidate. I think we could be retesting 520, if not 516, before we try to bounce back up. But there's going to be a lot of consolidation, in my personal opinion. For Microsoft, we look a little bit more bullish. We're looking at this 430 area. However, we'll have to see if 430 could hold. If we hold above this, we're going up to 434. If we don't hold 430, we're looking for a dip back down to about 425. So watch 430. If it doesn't hold, we're looking for that dip. As of right now, it looks a little bit more like it wants to push higher, but we'll see if that holds. For Google, we're looking at support at 157. If that fails us, we're looking for 155. If this holds, we're looking for 160. This could be dipping back down to 157, and that could lead to a little bit of a dip. So we'll see how Google responds to this. Can we hold above 158? We did a good job at pumping so far, but resistance is very tough at 160, so I wouldn't be surprised if we dip a bit to 155 before we try to bounce. So there might be some consolidation coming. DJT finally got a bounce. I was mentioning to everyone it's going to base around the 15 area, and we actually based on 15.5 before we tried to rebound. So look for 17.26 as support and 18.5 as resistance. We're just kind of range bound right here. We could push a little bit higher for 18.5, but we'll see if that breaks or not. The VIX has been dumping really hard. It might rebound just a little bit to test our 200 EMA, but there could be a big rejection still coming later on. Look for a small bounce potential in the VIX for now, and we'll see how it goes. The 10-year is going to be reacting to FOMC, and the dollar is also going to try to hold support 101. If support holds, we could try to come up to fill this gap, which is why the market could actually dip just a little bit. But then whether or not this gets a big bounce or a big dump depends a lot more on FOMC. So temporarily, it might bounce just a little bit, and the market may dip just a bit and then start to consolidate up here in this range. But then whether or not we get a break of our resistance to break to new all-time highs in the S&P 500, or if we get a rug pull, depends on FOMC. The chart has bullish potential after FOMC. However, it depends on what is said. So for now, approaching FOMC, I anticipate some consolidation, some sideways price action, and we'll see how things go after that. With that being said, I thank you all so much for listening. Please have a great day. I'll see you guys very soon. The next one tomorrow before the market opens. Until then, enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Take care, guys, and peace out.